The haters are coming out in full force this week, and I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of it.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, happy Friday, May 16th, 2025. What's up, and welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shader. Join place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you for making us your first listen or watch of the day to get your weekend started, baby, the right way. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hey, special shout out to all the everydayers here hanging out with us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great insiders. Going to be a fun show today, chock-a-block full as we wrap up the week and get ready for the weekend. Here's where we're headed on the show. The Carolina haters, man, they are coming out full force right now. And sometimes, like more often than not, I don't want to respond, but sometimes, man, it just gets to a boiling point and you have to. It was a massive start to the weekend for the Diamond Heels going down to Tallahassee. We'll talk about the short and long term of that. An NC State running back, for some reason, throwing gasoline on the rivalry fire. And, buddy, come on, man. That's bulletin board material waiting to happen. We get more on MJ's involvement or lack thereof in NBA games and another Tar Heel who will be more involved. And it's a bonkers weekend in the weekend whip around. All of that coming up on today's show. So here's where we're starting. If you are a regular with our show or you've interacted with me on social media or anything else, you know that I am a very even keel, glass half full kind of guy. I am very patient. That's probably the most God-given fruit of the spirit that I have. I don't get too high. I don't get too low. I'm just, hey, I'm here. I'm good. I'm chill. But sometimes, man, it just boils up and flows over. And today is one of those days where I'm just so frustrated with people's reactions and responses. A lot of it with the Drake Powell stuff. There was a Field of 68 segment this week, and it's just all of that. And then plus, literally like an hour ago, my son was supposed to go on this super fun field trip today near the end of their school year, and it just got canceled for some reasons outside of control. But poor guy was just in tears. And so I'm like double frustrated now on his behalf as well. And so all of that is leading into today. I don't know if you feel this way, but to me, it feels like people will take any chance they can get to throw shade. Yeah, that should be a segment, throwing shade at Carolina. And I'm sure other fan bases feel this way as well, but it's just like Carolina is an easy target for commentators. And I don't know why Kentucky's not, or Duke's not, or Kansas, or whatever. Why are we always the object of the scorn? But you know what? Fine, bring it. But that means we got to be really, really good. Well, here's where there's two specific areas I want to go. First is the Drake Powell side of it. Drake Powell on Wednesday officially, as you know, shut the door on coming back to Carolina. And there was a video circling around where he, says basically whatever. I thought I had written down his exact quotes, but it's fine. Basically saying, hey, coming into school, I was a two-way player, offense and defense, and I didn't really get to showcase all of that at North Carolina. I'm excited to continue to show that I'm still that guy. It was basically that, right? Well, those comments are bringing out all sorts of people dumping on Carolina for Hubert Davis isn't letting him be who he is, right? It's that same thing that people always said. The only person that ever held back Michael Jordan was Dean Smith. That kind of sentiment. Well, people are just twisting Drake's words to make it seem like this is some critically horrible indictment of North Carolina. But look at it the other side of it with me, if you will, for just a second. What would you like Drake Powell to have said there? Some form of this. Hey, yeah, you know what, you guys, you saw the very best of me at North Carolina. I got to showcase everything, and there's nothing more that you can see from me. I'm a finished product. I'm ready to go. And even though I didn't have the best numbers at UNC, I didn't score a ton of points. You've seen everything I have to show. No, that would be dumb of him to say. So, of course, your agent is going to coach you to say, hey, there's a lot more that I got in the tank. There's a lot more to my game. My bag is deeper even than you've seen. So why don't you stick with me? Because at the combine and beyond, I'm going to show you more than your wildest dreams, right? That's what he should say. If he's out there saying, hey, you've seen everything I got at Carolina, that would not help his case as he's trying to ascend in the rankings and be a first-round pick. So, but immediately, because Carolina, because all the narratives, everybody wants to be like, now see, Hubert Davis, he doesn't know how to develop. Hubert Davis, he didn't let Drake Powell be Drake Powell. Well, and some of that is a lot of this season as Carolina was trying to figure out their rotations, Drake Powell had to play out of position as a small ball forward. And you know what? The better thing he could have said is, like sometimes you just don't think the right things in the moment. That's hard to do. But to say, hey, I loved it later in the season when I got to play in position and be more me. But did you see that I was willing to play the 4 for my team and try to do what the coaches need me to do to make the team better? That would have helped as well. But I get it. Like, you just don't always think to say those things in the moment. So stop it with this trying to pile on Carolina from this innocuous comment from a very nice young man who's just like saying what he's either been coached to say or just kind of what he's feeling in the moment. And then there's all the hate on oh, Drake Powell cannot, there's the other side of it of the people who are like, Drake Powell doesn't have it and Drake Powell's not going to be able to do this and blah, blah, blah. And yes, I am firmly in the camp of, I think it would have benefited Drake to come back to school because I think he could have shown even more and been even higher in the rankings. But I'm not going to hate on him because I love that Drake Powell's wanting to bet on himself and go. So it's like people want to have both sides of this. You cannot both hate on Carolina for holding Drake Powell back and then hate on Drake Powell for making this decision that he made, because those things are mutually exclusive. And it's just people, every chance they get, want to dump on the Tar Heels. And so I just, none of that makes sense to me. And then another thing this week is Field of 68 is out here clickbaiting Carolina, right? There's there was a segment with Rob Doster and Jeff Goodman, and I think it was Isaac Trotter in the middle. And the clickbait on social media was a comment from Doster, which actually was right literally at the end of this segment of him basically saying the quote that was quoted on the social media post was Carolina's not a tournament team right now. And that's not actually what he said. It was a lot softer, but they had to try to make it firmer and more direct and tantalizing. Because what he actually said is, I don't know if this is a tournament team right now with North Carolina. And then there was another one out today, and it's where he said Carolina's in. Anyway, all of this, and it's frustrating to me. Let me read some of the comments, and then I'll give you my takes. Doster said on the show, quote, yeah, I think Carolina is in a really bad spot right now. I don't think that they did anywhere near enough, end quote. Now, with that one, there are parts of it that I think are true. I would like to see Carolina continue to do more. But they are. That's the thing. He's saying that as though they're done and a finished product. No. And going so far as to say they're in a really bad spot right now is a bridge too far. That is not accurate. I mean, yes, they're not a finished product and they would like to add more talent, but they're not in a really bad spot right now. You roll this team out, they're good. They're not elite yet. They still need more pieces, at least one at the small forward. But to say they're in a really bad spot right now is misleading, in my humble opinion. And then Doster goes on to say, the biggest problem they had last year was they had to basically play 3 guards who were all 6'2" or smaller. And he's meaning with Elliot Cadeau and RJ Davis starting, and then Seth Trimble, who is not 6'2". He's taller than that, but fine, whatever. I'll give you that. And he says, right now, their starting lineup, what? Is it Kyan Evans, Jaden Young, who is 6'4", and Seth Trimble at the 3 again? End quote. No, dude, what are you talking about? No, that's not going to be the start. Jaden Young is a great addition to this team, and I love that he wants to be at Carolina and be a Tar Heel. That's incredible. But no, he's not going to be the starting 2. It'll be Kyan Evans, probably Seth Trimble, and then there are probably 3 people that would start before Jaden Young would start. if you're going to talk on Carolina about this, you have to know the context of the team. And he clearly doesn't when he's making comments like this. Because right now, it's probably Kyan Evans at the 1, Seth Trimble at the 2, and then either Jaron Stevenson at the 3, or Jonathan Powell at the 3, or player that Carolina is still pursuing at the 3 before you would get to Jaden Young. Heck, you might even have Isaiah Dennis or Derek Dixon at the 2 before Jaden Young. Like, I think that trio is all in it together. But to be like, I think here's what frustrates me is it's fine to pop off. I get that. And I do that sometimes too on our national show on Locked On College Basketball. But to pop off and not accurately have the full context of it, that's what gets me going. Pop off, sure, but be informed. And if you're not, shut up, man. I don't need to hear it. And then Jeff Goodman goes in on the Jim Tanner of it all. So Doster starts talking about Jim Tanner trying to bring the roster together, Carolina's GM. And Goodman says, you mentioned Jim Tanner, who they hired, paid a lot of money to as GM this year. He was an NBA agent. He's older, been in the NBA business a while. But like, no disrespect to Jim Tanner, which as soon as you say a comment like no disrespect to Jim Tanner, you're about to disrespect Jim Tanner. I don't even know the guy well, but what I do know is I don't think he was ultra plugged into the college game. And right now the salaries and what you're paying and who you got to know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if Jim Tanner is the right guy, especially for this program. And I've heard Jim Tanner is an exceptional human being, but what they need right now is a cuss word. That's what they need at Carolina on that staff, end quote. What do you know about what Jim Tanner's doing behind the scenes to pull this together? Like, in the same breath, I could say Jim Tanner's doing a great job as GM, handing out money and doing all these things. We don't know because we haven't seen it yet, and it's behind the scenes. And it's just a comment to be critical and negative that you don't have to give because you don't know. That frustrates me. And then finally, Doster says, quote, I don't know if this is a tournament team right now with North Carolina. I think they're going to have a lot of the same issues this season they had last year, and I think they need to make a splash. You mentioned RJ Lewis. You mentioned Jameer Watkins. You mentioned Darion Williams. I mentioned Boogie Fland, end quote. And it's just like, RJ Lewis is probably staying in the draft. Jameer Watkins, Darion Williams, maybe. And then he talks about Boogie Fland. Well, we all already know that Carolina and Boogie Fland is not a thing. So again, you don't know the bigger context. So stop talking about it. Do some more research before you get on this show and pop off. That's the thing for me. Again, if you're going to talk about it, you got to talk about it correctly, and you're not. Because you talked about Boogie Fland maybe being connected to Carolina. That's done. You clearly don't know the context of any of the international guys Carolina is going after. And you're talking about these other guys. I got no time for that. All right. I think that's enough being frustrated because now I want to celebrate because the Diamond Heels were in a tricky spot heading to Tallahassee to wrap the regular season, facing the potential number 1 overall pick in the upcoming MLB draft, being on the mound for Florida State last night. And boy, did Carolina do their work. Let's go. Let's talk about that, which we'll do coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Game Time, man, there's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live. And this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in Game Time, man, they make it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. Prices on the app actually go down the closer to tip-off you get. And with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. Again, I love that I can see my exact view right there in the app. No surprises. I love that I can toggle on all-in pricing. No surprises at checkout. It's great stuff there. And with the Game Time guarantee, you also know that you're getting the very best deal. And if you can find a better price, same row, same section, 110% of the difference, they're going to rebate you. Great stuff. How about tonight's NBA game? Celtics at Knicks in Madison Square Garden. Game 6. Knicks at home, up 3-2, looking to close it out. So what does that mean? If you want to get there, you got to pay a pretty penny, but it's cheaper on Game Time than you can find a lot of places. Cheapest ticket I could find is $665, but I'm guessing it's going to go down like it always does the closer it gets to Game Time. So as always, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, baseball was down in Tallahassee this weekend to wrap up the regular season. Carolina number 4 in the nation, FSU number 2. That's at least by D1 Baseball's rankings. And the key here with this was just to not get swept. You got to go to Tallahassee and at least get one game. Because as a reminder for people, where baseball is so different than like basketball or football, is going undefeated is not going to happen. It truly is a sport where any given day, any team can beat any team. And so what you're looking to do in baseball is win series, right? Like, so you play a 3-game set on the weekend in college, and you just want to win 2 out of 3. So in baseball, success is winning 66.7% of the time. That's very different from, football, where if you're number whatever and you win that one-off, man, that does it, and that changes everything. And so in this case, for Carolina to kind of maintain where they're at, because you're also on the road against the number 2 team in the nation, you need to just go win at least one. Maybe not Thursday night because you're facing a pitcher who's potentially the number 1 player taken in this summer's MLB draft, but maybe win Friday or Saturday. But Carolina went ahead and took care of business on Thursday night, and that's what made this so incredible. Now, this series truly is mostly about ACC seeding, and ACC seeding is weird right now, and we'll get to that at the end of this segment. But there is an element of national seeding as well. What's nice is because you're on the road at the number 2 team in the nation, you're not going to get dinged a ton for losing the series. Maybe if you get swept, you get dinged. But if Carolina goes 1-2 at Florida State, they might fall from 4th to like 5th or 6th, but it's not going to be a massive drop. Losses aren't going to be critically detrimental to them, though. But wins could really help Carolina's national seed, because right now they're in a contention not only to be a host as a regional team, which would be a top 16 team, but a host to be one of the top 8 national seeds, which means you would host a super regional. And so what Carolina did, winning in the fashion they did against the pitcher they did on the road, clearly is going to turn heads of the selection committee. So that was massive. The vibes, the environment, it was super, super regionally feeling down there in Tallahassee, where it's like 2 top 8 teams in the nation or 2 top 16 teams in the nation facing off against each other, where you got to win 2 out of 3. And so for both teams, man, what a great experience to get to do that here at the end of the regular season, testing themselves against another of the top teams in the nation. So from that side of it, that's a great tune-up for both squads. All right, let's get to this game. Game 1, Thursday night, Carolina wins 8-3. And we're going to get to the pitching matchup here in just a second. But first, another, like we're talking about the haters in segment 1. I don't know if you were watching this game in real time, but on the ACC network, before the game, they were doing a segment and the guy was picking between Carolina and Florida State. Pitching, defense, and offense. All 3 of them. He's picked Florida State at all 3 levels. And just basically, he said it was a coin flip, but then like gave Carolina no love, no respect. Like Jake Knapp has nothing for Jamie Arnold, the pitching duel, that kind of stuff. Florida State, man, their middle defense is so good, right? He was just going gaga over Florida State, not giving Carolina much of any chance. And Arnold is the best. And Jake Knapp's okay, whatever. Well, Jake Knapp goes out and dominates this performance while Jamie Arnold wasn't on at all. And he was talking all about Florida State's middle of their defense and how it puts Carolina to shame. Well, bottom of the 5th inning was a great example of the middle of Carolina's defense being phenomenal. Madera gets this crazy play for the first out up the middle. Kane Kepley covered a ton of ground into the left center gap, cuts off a ball. It was a sac fly, but still it's like, okay, go ahead and poo-poo Carolina's defense. And there's the middle of the defense doing absolute work. And so I was just like, man, haters all week right now. And it's just, I can't with it. This pitching matchup was elite. Jamie Arnold, Florida State starter last night, comes in number 1 at a lot of MLB big boards. We don't know that he'll be the number 1 pick in the draft, but it is going to be up there very, very, very high. And he's a lefty, and Carolina was starting their batting order had 6 different lefties in it, which I don't know how much you keep up with baseball, but lefty on lefty matchups are really difficult. But man, the Tar Heels put together so many great at-bats against Jamie Arnold, running up the count. He didn't have great control of his fastball, which helps. But if Carolina's swinging at all the off-speed stuff, his secondary pitches, that helps him work his way into the game. But Carolina was patient. They worked counts, and they got him out of the game by the 5th inning. And then you get to Florida State's bullpen, which, again, that guy on ACC Network was talking about how great Florida State's depth is. Their bullpen is not that great. That's a misnomer. And so Carolina getting their bullpen was a big win. And so really, really nice job against Jamie Arnold. And I tell you what, the biggest blow was Gavin Gallagher's just massive home run to lead off the 2nd inning. And what a great moment for Gallagher, because you're facing this, again, potential number 1 pick in the draft, scouts everywhere because there's a bunch of MLB players on both teams. And you do that. I mean, that home run was a bomb. Great stuff for Gavin there. But on the flip side, Jake Knapp, the guy who was like an afterthought in this pitching matchup, was the one who dazzled on Thursday night. A complete game at FSU, throwing 100 and whatever pitches. It was his first career 9-inning complete game at one of the most massive moments when his team really, really needed it. Gave up just 4 hits, only 3 runs, and 0 walks. I mean, what a performance from Jake Knapp. You talked about Arnold not being locked in. Jake Knapp was as dialed in as you could be. And what was really neat, what was really impressive, is his toughest inning was the 6th inning. That was when he gave up some hits, that 2-run bomb. But then after that, you worry how a pitcher will unravel. It was very hot in Tallahassee, but he goes 7, 8, 9, those innings, perfect. 9 up, 9 down. Unreal stuff from Jake Knapp. Was super efficient, had through 5 innings, just 57 pitches, really, really good stuff. As for the Carolina offensive side of it, they did a really nice job just tacking on runs, insurance runs throughout the game. Yes, they got that home run from Gallagher, but then Jackson Vanderbrake, man, had an absolute night. He had that triple to the left center gap in the top of the 5th inning, and then Gallagher came back up, had a nice sac fly, which Vanderbrake scored on, had a beautiful slide, had some nice coaching from Stokely, having him slide the correct way. And then what Carolina did even better was respond to Florida State scoring their first run. So FSU pushes one across bottom 5th, and then Carolina tacks on their final 4 runs in the next inning. A beautiful safety squeeze from Holbrook to bring in Alex Madera. And then there was that crazy play where Kane Kepley sliced the ball down the left field line. The left fielder from Florida State, Williams, made an unbelievable catch. But both Carolina runners, Tyson Bass and I forget who was at first, tag and come all the way around. Tyson Bass scored, tagging up from second on a sac fly. Now, not typically how you would have your guys run bases. There's some nuance to it. And I honestly could have gone either way on it, but great catch. In great base running to get around and score. Poor guy Williams. I really thought he was concussed, man. The way he was coming off, I really thought they maybe should have brought him out of the game, but he stayed in, whatever. And then Jackson Vanderbrake comes up and gets a home run. I mean, just a crazy night. That capped Carolina scoring. Really good stuff from the Carolina offense. For Jackson Vanderbrake, finishes just a double shy of the cycle. Was really, really happy for him. Rest of the series. Tonight, Friday, 7 p.m. on ACC Network. And then Saturday will be game 3 at 2 p.m. on ACC Network Extra. And at this point, I'm getting greedy. Carolina won Thursday night. Let's get at least one more and win the series. And then why not go for the sweep, right? So we'll see how all of that goes. And then ACC seeding is at play. Carolina would really like to be a top 4 team so they can get a double bye in next week's ACC tournament. But the only way they can jump Florida State is if they sweep them. Because of all the rain and rainouts, the teams aren't going to play an equal number of games. So it's all going to be about winning percentage. One of the nice things is that another of the 2 top teams that are in contention are also playing each other. That's Georgia Tech and Duke. Georgia Tech beat Duke on Thursday night 7-6. So Duke falls even farther back of the Tar Heels, and Carolina and Georgia Tech keep pace with each other. The Yellow Jackets a half game up on Carolina right now. One of the bummers is that NC State is playing Stanford, who's not good. And so State won 7-2 on Thursday night. And right now they're at the top of the heap in the ACC. And as a reminder with Stanford, Carolina getting swept earlier in the season to kick off ACC play at home by Stanford is really what's coming back to bite them right now. Because if they even just win that series, they're at probably the top of the ACC heap right now. But Carolina, they're in the position they're in. You just focus on one game at a time against Florida State, and you never know. All right. So Diamond Heels, way to go. Now, speaking of NC State, one of their running backs is out here providing bulletin board material in middle of May. What are we talking about? Plus, we learned more involvement about MJ's involvement with NBA games. And while it ain't much, another Tar Heel is going to be more involved. Plus, the rest of the weekend whip around where multiple Carolina women's teams are advancing to the Final Four. All that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about our good friends at Wayfair. The days are getting longer, the weather's warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. So whether you're working with a big backyard or a small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining room tables and outdoor decor, they got it all, and at prices that fit your budget. So grab a new patio dining set and some string lights from Wayfair to help extend your outdoor space. I use some string lights, and they really change the entire feel of that backdoor outdoor space. So whether you're entertaining guests, you're just relaxing solo, whatever it is, shop Wayfair to help you unwind. The delivery is free, it's hassle-free, and that's true even for the big stuff. I love that they provide that for you. So shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. All right, wrapping up the show today, we just mentioned NC State, but NC State, I don't know what this homie is thinking he's doing, but NC State running back Hollywood Smothers is, forgive me for the corny dad joke, is going to get smothered. Because homie is out here using a picture of Bill Belichick as target practice for throwing darts. I don't know the backstory of how or why this got on social media, but boy, is it just making the rounds. And it's just, why would you let this get out there? You know it's going to be bulletin board material, and it's not that big a deal, right? We in sports just love to get all up in arms over anything, even if it's not that big a deal. But I tell you what, if you're going to give me any modicum, any small amount of bulletin board material, you better believe I'm going to use it to the nth degree to inspire my team. And so Hollywood Smothers is going to be a clear and obvious target for North Carolina in this game next year. It's like, dude, what are you doing? And then Kamori House, one of the transfers into North Carolina, linebacker, responded on Twitter. He quote tweeted it. Just, I loved how subtly he said, LOL, we gonna see. And it's just like, come on, man. You thank you, but you got to be smarter than that, dude. You know that's going to rile up your rivalry. And when this is, especially in football, when that's already the more hated rivalry than Duke, it's like, all right. And I think part of it too is the frustration that we as Carolina fans feel, because for some reason, NC State has been beating Carolina the last several years. And speaking of sick and tired of things, like I was saying earlier in the show about the haters, I am so over losing to NC State on the football. Like, I just got to do that better this year. All right, we got more of an update on Michael Jordan's involvement with the NBA on NBC. Basically, what we learned is that his segments are going to be taped, and he's not going to appear a ton. It'll be like halftime or pregame and stuff like that. Remember earlier in the week, we talked about that he's going to be involved, but we didn't know what special consultant was going to mean. And it seems like it's not going to be much. Now, to be fair, it sounds like NBC is still working to solidify exactly what his role is going to be, but it ain't going to be much. But the good news is we also learned that Vince Carter is going to be a studio analyst for the NBA on NBC games. We already knew that Carmelo Anthony was going to be one of the studio analysts, and now VC is going to be joining him. The NBC Sports release says, When Carter joins NBC Sports in October for the start of the 2025-26 NBA season, he will be in studio one or more nights per week through the playoffs, often working alongside Carmelo Anthony. So I'm assuming, though, that means since it says through the playoffs, that won't be any regular season work. Vince just hopping in once we get to the postseason action. Anyway, that's going to be great and can't wait to see VC in that role. He does a phenomenal job, and I think that'll be great. Again, more Tar Heels in more visible things is great news for Carolina. All right, weekend whip around. Let's get to that, and we'll wrap the show. Two different Carolina teams were in the quarterfinals, the Elite Eight, on Thursday, both women's tennis and women's lacrosse, and both of them win and are advancing to the Final Four. Let's start with women's tennis. The number 5 seed facing off against 13 LSU on Thursday. Carolina wins 4-2. They start by taking the doubles point. Basically, if you're unfamiliar with how it works, there are 3 doubles matches that are played just 1 set to 6. And if you win 2 out of 3 of those double sets, you win 1 point for your team. So Carolina wins at number 1 doubles in a tiebreaker. Carolina goes up 6-4 there. They start at 2 doubles, winning 6-3. Nice, comfortable win there. And then Carolina just needs to win either at number 1 doubles or number 3 doubles. And the funny thing is that Carolina won both of those matches nearly simultaneously. Because usually what happens is when you win the clinching match, the other one stops if it's the first 2. But Carolina had match point in both doubles at literally as the same point was being played. It was almost like twins being born. They happened simultaneously, but technically one of them finished before the other. So it was number 3 doubles that wrapped up before number 1. So great stuff. Carolina up 1-0, meaning now, because you need 4 total points to win a collegiate tennis match. And so Carolina just needed to win 3 of the 6 doubles or singles matches. The problem was, unfortunately, Reese Brantmeyer missed most of last season with that knee injury. She had to retire just like 5 games into her set. Unfortunately, more on that in a second. And so now the score is 1-1, and Carolina will have to win 3 of the remaining 5. So now it's a lot more even. And thankfully, the Tar Heels do. Carson Tanguilig makes light work of her opponent at number 5 doubles, winning 6-1, 6-1. So now it's 2-1 Carolina. And then LSU wins at 3 doubles. So now it's 2-2. Then Tatum Evans wins at number 3 singles. So 6-1, 6-2. Again, light work, 3-2 Carolina. And then Claire Hill wins at number 6 singles, 6-4, 6-3 for the clincher. Thea Radman was about to win herself at number 2 singles. So nice news is that Carolina was probably going to wrap it up either way. So great job, ladies. Now Carolina moves on to face Georgia, number 1 overall seed in the semifinals, the Final Four. That will be tomorrow, Saturday at 11 a.m. Carolina beat Georgia in Athens back on February 1st, 4-3, super tight match. But now it looks like they might have to do it without Reese Brantmeyer, again, who had to retire with a knee issue in that same knee where she was hurt last year. So as I record this, don't yet know if she's going to be able to go or not tomorrow. I would imagine probably not, man. You don't want to mess with knee stuff, and that means Carolina's going to have to shuffle their lineup, and we'll see what happens. Maybe it's a circle the wagons kind of moment. I mean, what a story that would be. But, man, just in a quote-unquote rebuilding year to make the Final Four, Carolina women's tennis, you guys rock. Women's lacrosse, so that was on Thursday afternoon. Thursday night, as the baseball team was playing, women's lacrosse was also playing against number 8 seed Princeton. Carolina, the number 1 overall. Tar Heels win 19-10. They were up 9-2 at the half, basically coast their way to victory in the second half. And it's pretty cool. Top 4 teams all advance all season long. It's been Carolina, Boston College, and Northwestern. But then Florida is the number 4 seed. They will all go to Gillette Stadium up in Foxborough, Massachusetts. And that'll be, those semifinals will be next Friday, a week from today, May 23rd. Carolina, the 1 seed, will play Florida, the 4 seed, on ESPNU at 3 p.m. And then thankfully, Boston College and Northwestern is the other semifinal. And so then Carolina hopefully beats Florida and then plays one of them in the championship. Wouldn't be surprised if it's Tar Heels and Boston College for the 3rd time this year. Softball, their regional action kicks off today. They're in the Knoxville regional, where Tennessee is the number 7 overall seed. Tennessee playing Miami, Ohio, I think is like 1 or 1:30. And then Carolina and Ohio State will play after that around 4 p.m. Eastern. That's today on ESPNU. Men's golf, unfortunately, falls in their regional earlier in this week, miss out by one spot. They had been way back after the first round. They were 11th. After round 2, they were 7th, needed to get to top 5 to advance to the NCAA championships, and they dug a really deep hole, but worked their way out of it quickly in the third round there on Wednesday. Even got into where they held 5th place by themselves, and then just kind of fell apart down the stretch. Unfortunate. They miss out by one spot. So difficult. Track and field, the ACC Outdoor Championships are ongoing this weekend. That started yesterday. And then rowing ACC Championship starts today as well. So again, a massive weekend for Carolina athletics, mostly postseason stuff, plus the baseball team wrapping the regular season in what essentially feels like a postseason matchup. All right. Wow, man, great show. Thanks so much for being here. I got a little heated. That doesn't happen very often, but sometimes I guess we just got to even keel. Isaac sometimes needs to get up in arms a little bit. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. If you haven't subscribed to the show, do that right now. If you're watching on YouTube, you can do it right down there at the bottom corner. If you're listening on audio, just hit subscribe on your favorite audio platform. If you haven't joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, we'd love to have you there. A great community of Tar Heels hanging out all the time, talking. It's over 500 people in there. That link is in the show notes. If you want to go even deeper with the show, join the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders. That link is in the show notes as well. I hope you all have a great weekend. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be back together again on Monday, but until then, peace.